Graduates with debt owe an average of $25,250. This headline came from the Wall Street Journal back in November. And during this segment, we're going to continue talking about the cost of college, how to pay for it, good things, bad things, just kind of the state of affairs with college. I think it's one of the sort of undiscussed bubbles out there that something has got to happen. We saw housing become overinflated in price. We saw the over-leveraging of housing, people borrowing money, financing 120% of the cost of their house. We saw people buying. We saw people here at the beach. Somebody would buy a waterfront, or not a waterfront, but a beachfront lot for $1 million, and 6 months later they were selling it for $2 million. I mean, the prices of things were doubling. Now, some of those were my clients, so they're kind of happy. We told them to sell, get rid of it. It's not going to last forever. But the point is, we saw this wild speculation. We saw the cost of things become disconnected from the value because the money was so easy. You went to the bank, no money down, no income verification, no asset verification. It was the old proverbial, if you fog a mirror, we'll loan you the money. Oh, it's real estate, it's waterfront, it's beach. Oh, yeah. We don't care if you've ever worked in your life. Here's some money to go buy that house. We just saw wild X's, and of course that whole thing collapsed. We're seeing some of the same thing in education today. Now, don't get me wrong. I think everybody should get education. Education is very important. Education as much as people want to prepare them for life in general. Some of the majors out there are a little suspect. What you want is you want to be able to learn how to learn, and that's what we're not teaching. Unless you're going into a professional, a doctor, lawyer, something like that, you need to learn how to learn. And we don't see a lot of that going on. But education is very important. The problem comes in is when you spend so much for your education that it doesn't matter how good of an education you got, you're never going to get ahead. I'll tell you, the recipe for financial disaster is go to college, borrow a whole bunch of money. Now, of course, they're talking about forgiving all student loans so you never have to pay it back. That's a whole different story. But assuming that you have some sort of conscience and are going to pay that money back, go out, borrow a bunch of money for your college degree. You go get a job. You live in the suburbs, so you need a car. Let's say maybe you wanted to get married. You marry your high school sweetheart, so now you need 2 cars that are financed. And you want to go and you go buy, one of these new homes out there. So now you've got a college loan payment, 2 car payments, and a house payment. I mean, unless you come out of college making, $150,000 a year, you're never going to dig out of that hole. Well, it's going to be very difficult to dig out of that hole. We see people come into our office, and they're middle-aged, 40, 45 years old, and it's okay, what are your assets, what are your debts? And they're writing down college loans. Age 45, they're still paying off college loans from 15, 20 years ago. And I don't care what the interest rate is. The fact is it's still debt. It's still a payment. It's still overhang. It's a mental drag on people. It's ridiculous. So this article out of the Wall Street Journal, $25,250 is the average debt of college seniors who graduated in 2010. That's up 5% from the prior year. And this came from a report. Now, one of the things this doesn't include is what they call for-profit colleges. Now, I hate the term for-profit colleges. For-profit college in the media means something like the University of Phoenix or colleges that are, all colleges are in it for profit. The North Carolina University is in it for North Carolina State, University of North Carolina, they're in it for profit. Just ask the chancellors, how much they make. Ask the professors how much they make. Ask the college when they want to build a new building, where did the money come from? They're not for profit according to the state, but they're in it for profit. They're in it to amass prestige and big campuses and the tenured professors and research and all that kind of stuff. Make no mistake, I don't like the distinction of for-profit colleges, but typically the average student had $25,000 in student loans. Now, the unemployment rate for these young graduates rose from 8.7 to 9.1. This was in 2010. And so when you have, there are all sorts of rules as far as when you have to start paying it back. But if you're going out and you're borrowing $25,000 for your education, then you can't get a job. There's something wrong with that. We kind of have a rule of thumb. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it works pretty well, is that when you graduate, the debt that you have for your education should certainly not exceed what you can make the first year graduating from college. So if you're going to come out, maybe you're a first-year law student and you owe, $50,000 or something, but you can make, $90,000 your first year, it may be too bad. But if you're graduating, $25,000 in student loan debt, and you're going to be a camp counselor or something, or you can't get a job, that's a big problem. Some of the top states with the highest student debt was New Hampshire, Maine, Iowa, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Vermont, and that's pretty typical. A lot of those states have very expensive private schools, where you see the states with the average lowest debt. They didn't actually break out North Carolina, but the states with the cheaper in-state schools had the lowest level of debt per student. All right, well, we're coming up on our next break. When we come back during the third and final segment of today's show, we'll continue talking a little bit about student loan debt. For All Things Money, I'm David Blain.